What happens when a gate agent's snap judgment collides with a power she could never have imagined? This isn't just a story about a denied boarding pass. It's about the quiet humiliation that so many endure, and the devastating reckoning that follows when one of those silent victims is the daughter of the most powerful man in aviation safety. We're about to take you to Gate C-27 at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, where a simple request to board a plane spirals into a career-ending, multi-million-dollar catastrophe. You'll witness the moment a dismissive smirk turns to sheer terror, and learn how one father's quiet fury completely dismantled a corporate culture of bias. This is the story of Dr. Nina Okafor, a 28-year-old aerospace engineer with a first-class ticket, and her father Jonathan, the deputy administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. It's a story that proves karma doesn't always fly coach. The departures terminal at Chicago O'Hare was a symphony of controlled chaos. Gate C-27 was packed with passengers waiting for Transglobal Airlines Flight 856 to London Heathrow. Dr. Nina Okafor sat near the window, watching the massive Airbus A350 being prepared on the tarmac. At 28, Nina had just defended her doctoral dissertation in aerospace engineering at MIT. 5 years of relentless work had culminated in a single triumphant moment 2 weeks ago. This trip to London was her reward, a gift from her father, a first-class ticket to decompress before starting her dream job at NASA's Glenn Research Center. She was dressed for the 10-hour flight in comfort, dark gray joggers, a navy MIT hoodie, and white sneakers. Her natural hair was pulled into a neat bun. She looked young, casual, and completely at ease. To most observers, she was just another millennial traveler. To her father, she was the culmination of a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice. The gate agent, a woman in her late 40s with a severe expression and a name tag reading Sharon Bennett, was managing the boarding process with visible irritation. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun that seemed to match her personality. She barked instructions at passengers, her voice sharp and impatient. Nina barely noticed. She was absorbed in a research paper on her tablet, making notes for her upcoming work at NASA. When the announcement came for first-class boarding, she gathered her small backpack and joined the short line of 4 passengers. In front of her was an older white couple dressed in expensive casual wear, and behind her, a man in a tailored business suit checking his Rolex. No one gave her a second glance as the line moved forward. When Nina reached the podium, she smiled politely and held out her phone with the mobile boarding pass displayed. Sharon Bennett's eyes flicked from the screen to Nina's face, then slowly down to her sneakers and back up to her hoodie. Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a tiny tightening around the eyes, a barely noticeable downturn of the mouth. "This line is for first-class passengers only," Sharon said, her voice dripping with condescension. Nina's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, I know. I'm in first class. Seat 2A. Sharon didn't look at the phone again. She kept her eyes fixed on Nina, her gaze cold and dismissive. "General boarding will be called shortly. You'll need to step aside." The implication hung in the air like a slap. Nina felt heat creep up her neck. This was a test she'd faced her entire life, the assumption that she didn't belong in spaces reserved for success and privilege. "If you look at my boarding pass," Nina said calmly, keeping her voice even, "you'll see it clearly states first class, seat 2A. The man in the suit behind her shifted impatiently. The elderly couple had already boarded and were now watching from inside the jet bridge, their curiosity piqued. Sharon let out an exaggerated sigh, the sound of someone dealing with a difficult child. She took Nina's phone with manicured nails that clicked against the glass. She squinted at the screen, then looked back at Nina with obvious skepticism. "Sometimes people purchase economy tickets and get confused about which line to use," Sharon said, her tone suggesting Nina was too simple to understand basic airport procedures. "It happens all the time." "I didn't make a mistake," Nina said, her voice firmer now. "That's a valid first-class ticket. Please just scan it." Sharon's lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. The challenge to her authority was clearly unwelcome. "I'm going to need to see some identification." And the credit card used to purchase this ticket. Nina's jaw tightened. This was absurd. No one else had been asked for this level of verification. My ID is in my bag, but why? The name on the ticket is Nina Okafor. My face is right here in front of you. Policy, Sharon said flatly, as if the word was a brick wall. We have to verify premium tickets. Fraud is a serious issue. The unspoken words, especially for people like you, hung heavy in the air. The line behind Nina was growing. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, judging, assuming. The embarrassment was a physical weight pressing down on her shoulders. This is ridiculous, Nina said, her composure beginning to crack. Can you please just call your supervisor? It was the wrong thing to say. Sharon's face hardened, her eyes taking on a vindictive glint. Calling a supervisor was an admission of failure, a challenge to her domain. Ma'am, Sharon said, pushing Nina's phone back at her, there is an issue with this ticket. It's not scanning properly. She hadn't even attempted to scan it. You are holding up the line for our legitimate first-class passengers. I need you to step over there. She pointed to an isolated area away from the boarding podium. We'll sort this out after everyone else has boarded. If you refuse to comply, I will call airport security. The threat of security was the final humiliation. It transformed Nina from a passenger with a ticket issue into a problem, a potential threat. The man in the suit huffed loudly. For God's sake, just move. Nina felt tears of pure rage prick at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She looked at Sharon's smug, triumphant face. She looked at the impatient, judgmental faces behind her. She felt small, powerless, and utterly furious. With as much dignity as she could muster, she nodded stiffly, turned away from the podium, and walked to the spot Sharon had indicated. Her legs felt like lead. The sounds of the terminal seemed to fade into white noise. She stood there, her body trembling with adrenaline and shame, watching as other passengers breezed through without a single question. Sharon shot her a triumphant smirk before turning to scan the next passenger's ticket without issue. Nina's scientific training kicked in. Emotion clouded judgment. She needed to control the variables. She took a deep, shuddering breath and reached for her phone. She didn't call the airline's customer service. She didn't tweet her outrage. She went to her favorites and pressed the first name on the list. Dad. Jonathan Okafor was in a windowless conference room at the FAA's Great Lakes Regional Office, listening to a presentation on runway safety protocols. As the Deputy Administrator for Aviation Safety, his days were filled with data, regulations, and the heavy responsibility of keeping American skies safe. He was a man who lived in a world of facts, not feelings. His phone, set to vibrate, buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen. Nini. His entire demeanor shifted. He held up a hand, interrupting the presenter. Gentlemen, excuse me. I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway and answered with warmth. Hey, Nini. You at the gate? Ready for London? The response was not excited chatter. It was a single, broken word. Dad. Every parental alarm in Jonathan's body activated. He could hear the tremor in his daughter's voice, the forced control barely holding back emotion. What's wrong? Are you hurt? I'm safe, Nina said, taking a steadying breath. But they won't let me on the plane. The gate agent says my ticket is fraudulent. She threatened to call security. Jonathan closed his eyes briefly. A cold, familiar anger began to form in his chest. It was the anger of seeing his brilliant daughter, a woman with a doctorate from MIT, a woman about to work for NASA, reduced to a stereotype by someone with a uniform and a sliver of authority. What gate? C-27. Transglobal to Heathrow. And the agent's name? Sharon Bennett. It's on her name tag. Okay, Nina. Listen carefully. Stay exactly where you are. Don't engage with her. If anyone speaks to you, be polite but say only, "I'm waiting for assistance." Can you discreetly start recording on your phone? Point it down but make sure the audio is clear. Yes, Dad. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't worry, Nini. We're going to fix this. He hung up and stood in the hallway for a moment. The anger was there, but he channeled it. Raw anger caused explosions. Refined anger powered engines. He walked back into the conference room. Something urgent has come up. We'll reschedule. He gathered his materials and turned to his deputy. Jim, I need a car immediately. And make a discreet call to O'Hare Authority. I want the CCTV footage from Gate C-27 for the last hour secured and preserved. Tell them it's for a pending FAA inquiry. Use my name. Jim's eyes widened. Jonathan, what's? A personnel issue that's becoming a regulatory one. Just get me that car and secure the footage. Minutes later, he was in a black sedan, heading toward O'Hare. During the ride, he transformed. He wasn't Dad anymore. Dad was angry and wanted to yell. Nina needed the deputy administrator, the calm, methodical authority figure who walked into rooms full of airline executives after major incidents and made them answer for their failures. He straightened his tie and checked his credentials. When the car pulled up to the terminal, he bypassed the chaos using his government ID, moving through employee security with practiced ease. As he approached Gate C-27, he saw the scene exactly as Nina had described. General boarding was in progress, a long line of passengers shuffling forward. And off to the side, standing alone like an exile, was his daughter. Her head was held high, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the rigid set of her jaw. She was holding her phone as instructed. His eyes shifted to the podium. Sharon Bennett was scanning tickets with mechanical efficiency, occasionally snapping at passengers to hurry up. Jonathan didn't go to Nina first. That would be the move of a father. He was here as an official. He walked directly to the podium, stepping into the space between Sharon and the passenger line, forcing everything to stop. Sharon looked up, her face creasing with annoyance. "Sir, the line is over there. You'll have to wait your turn." Jonathan looked at her with unervingly calm eyes. "I'm not here to board. I'm here to inquire about a passenger. Dr. Nina Okafor." Sharon's eyes flicked to Nina, then back to Jonathan. A knowing smirk crossed her face. "Oh, you must be her father. Look, I'm sorry, but your daughter was causing a disruption. There's an issue with her ticket." She was lying with casual ease, clearly thinking this was just another angry parent she could dismiss. Jonathan's voice dropped, becoming quieter but somehow more powerful. "A disruption? Could you describe the specific nature of this alleged disruption?" "She was belligerent," Sharon said confidently. She raised her voice and refused to follow instructions. "I had to ask her to step aside for the safety of other passengers." "I see. And the ticket issue? What specific irregularity did you find when you scanned it?" Sharon's eyes darted briefly. "The scanner couldn't read it. It's likely fraudulent. You know how it is, people try to scam their way into first class." "So to be clear," Jonathan said, his voice still eerily calm, "you are officially stating that Dr. Okafor was belligerent, and that her ticket, purchased legally through your airline's website, is fraudulent. Is that your position?" The use of Dr. Okafor caused a flicker of uncertainty in Sharon's eyes, but she pushed forward. "Yes. That's the situation. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a plane to board." Sharon had just made the worst mistake of her career. She had lied to a federal regulator. Feeling cornered but clinging to her authority, Sharon picked up the phone at her podium. "Michael, I need you at C-27. We have a situation with some aggressive passengers." She thought she was calling for backup. She was actually summoning another witness to her own destruction. Michael Torres, the Transglobal station manager, arrived 5 minutes later. He was a harried-looking man in his 40s, his tie askew, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. His job was to make problems disappear quickly and quietly, usually in the airline's favor. "What's the issue here?" he asked, directing the question at Jonathan. Sharon jumped in. "Michael, thank goodness. This man's daughter tried to board with a questionable first-class ticket. When I asked her to step aside, she became belligerent. Now he's here making a scene." Michael nodded, already siding with his employee. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but we have procedures. If there's a ticket issue, we can look into it at customer service after the flight departs." Jonathan listened patiently, letting them both build their narrative. When they finished, he spoke. "My name is Jonathan Okafor. This is my daughter, Dr. Nina Okafor. She holds a valid, fully paid first-class ticket for seat 2A. She was not belligerent. She was, however, denied boarding, publicly humiliated, and falsely accused by your employee, Ms. Bennett." Michael's professional smile tightened. "Sir, that's a serious accusation. Sharon is one of our most experienced agents. And she is lying," Jonathan said flatly. "The truth is, Ms. Bennett never attempted to scan the ticket. She made a judgment based on my daughter's appearance and fabricated a story to justify it." Sharon scoffed. "That's not true. I did try to scan it." This was the moment. Jonathan reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black leather credentials case. He opened it with a practiced motion, revealing a gold badge and government ID. "I am Jonathan Okafor," he said, his voice now carrying unmistakable authority. "Deputy Administrator for Aviation Safety with the Federal Aviation Administration. And while my daughter's treatment is personal, your employee's fabrication, your airline's failure to follow procedure, and the potential violation of federal anti-discrimination statutes are now official." The change was instantaneous. Michael Torres's face went from ruddy to ghostly white. His eyes bulged as he stared at the credentials, his brain struggling to process the catastrophic turn of events. Sharon Bennett froze. The smugness shattered, replaced by pure terror. The color drained from her face. "Now," Jonathan continued, snapping the case shut, "let's stop talking about what people claim happened and look at the data. Mr. Torres, you will take me to your operations console. We're going to pull the complete system logs for this boarding pass. Then we're going to review the CCTV footage my office has already requested." Michael could only nod, his Adam's apple bobbing. "And Ms. Bennett," Jonathan said, turning his piercing gaze on her, "you will not scan another ticket. You will not speak to another passenger. You will stand right here and wait. Your workday is over." He walked over to Nina and put a hand on her shoulder. The official mask fell away for a moment. "You okay, Nini?" Nina nodded, a single tear escaping. "Yeah, Dad. Good. It's almost over." The walk to the Transglobal operations room was silent and tense. Michael Torres moved like a man walking to his execution. Jonathan followed, his calm demeanor more menacing than any outburst. The operations room was cramped and chaotic, filled with monitors displaying flight data. An operations manager looked up in confusion as they entered. Michael went to a terminal, his hands trembling as he typed. Passenger name, Okafor, Nina. The record appeared instantly. Michael made a strangled sound. The ticket hadn't been purchased by Nina directly, it had been booked through the FAA's corporate travel portal. It was an ironclad, top-tier booking. The screen practically screamed, "Federal Government." "Now check the scan logs," Jonathan said flatly. Michael typed with clumsy, dread-filled fingers. The log appeared. Every other first-class passenger had successful scan entries. For Nina's ticket number, nothing. No scan attempt. No error. Digital proof that Sharon's claim was a complete fabrication. Now the video. The operations manager pulled up the CCTV feed. They rewound to Nina approaching the podium. The silent footage was damning, Nina smiling politely, Sharon's dismissive wave, Nina speaking calmly, Sharon's agitated state, and finally Nina walking away, shoulders slumped. No disruption. No aggression. Just a quiet exercise of undeserved power. Michael leaned back, broken. Mr. Okafor, I am so sorry. This is inexcusable. Yes, it is, Jonathan replied coolly. Get your airline president on the phone. Now. While Michael made the panicked call, Jonathan stepped out and dialed his own office. Jim, initiate a formal DOT complaint against Transglobal Airlines for potential violation of anti-discrimination statutes. Open a corresponding FAA investigation into their customer service protocols. I want a full audit, every discrimination complaint filed against this airline for the past 3 years, and I want to see how they were resolved. He wasn't just a father protecting his daughter. He was a regulator who had witnessed a systemic failure so blatant it demanded an institutional response. When the airline's regional vice president, a woman named Patricia Lawson, rushed in minutes later, Jonathan laid out the situation in cold detail. The lie. The cover-up. The systemic implications. Ms. Lawson, he concluded, your airline has a profound problem. You will ensure my daughter is immediately escorted onto that aircraft. But understand, the consequences for Transglobal will not end when that plane pushes back. Patricia's apologies were immediate and profuse. Mr. Okafor, I am horrified. We'll offer a full refund, vouchers, our highest status. Jonathan held up a hand. That's between you and my daughter. My concern is ensuring this doesn't happen to the next person who doesn't have me on speed dial. Back at the gate, Sharon was still standing by the podium, now under watch. She looked like a ghost. Jonathan went straight to Nina. Patricia Lawson approached with pained apology. Dr. Okafor, I cannot express how sorry I am. This was unprofessional and unacceptable. Nina just looked at her, exhausted. Thank you. As they walked down the jet bridge, Nina turned to her father. Dad, you didn't have to. Yes, Nini, he said softly. I did. For you and for everyone else. When Nina boarded, the lead flight attendant greeted her with wide-eyed deference. Welcome aboard, Dr. Okafor. Please, let me show you to your seat. As Nina settled into seat 2A, she looked out the window. She saw Sharon being escorted away by airport security. Not a dramatic arrest, but a walk of shame. The plane pushed back and lifted into the sky. Nina leaned against the window, exhausted but vindicated. The immediate reckoning had been swift. But the hard karma was only beginning that in the weeks that followed, the incident at Gate C-27 metastasized into a corporate crisis for Transglobal Airlines. Sharon Bennett was suspended immediately. After a perfunctory investigation consisting of viewing the CCTV footage, she was terminated for gross misconduct. Desperate, she hired a lawyer and filed a wrongful termination suit, claiming she was a scapegoat. It was her final fatal mistake. The lawsuit moved everything into public record. Transglobal's legal team had to produce the video in discovery. The silent footage of her disdainful looks and lies was played in deposition. The case was summarily dismissed, with the judge noting its frivolous nature. Sharon Bennett was now unemployable, her name blacklisted throughout the airline industry. Michael Torres, the supervisor, fared little better. The FAA audit that Jonathan ordered uncovered a disturbing pattern. Over 3 years, 28 discrimination complaints had been filed at the Chicago hub. Nearly all were closed by Michael with the same finding: customer service issue, employee followed protocol. He had systematically buried evidence, creating a culture where agents like Sharon felt empowered to act on their biases. He was fired not just for his role in Nina's case, but for systemic failure. But Jonathan's investigation targeted something bigger than 2 employees. The audit team pulled training manuals and corporate policies. They found Transglobal's diversity training was woefully inadequate, a single PowerPoint slide in a curriculum focused almost entirely on operational efficiency. The final FAA report was a scathing indictment of the airline's culture, detailing a pattern of behavior that constituted systemic discrimination. Armed with this report, the Department of Transportation moved in. Transglobal was hit with a $3.2 million fine, one of the largest penalties ever levied for discriminatory practices. The press coverage was brutal. The story, Powerful Gate Agents' Racist Actions Exposed by Victim's Father, who happened to run aviation safety, went viral. Transglobal's stock price dropped. Passengers began publicly boycotting. The final karma was the consent decree. To avoid further action, Transglobal was forced to sign a legally binding agreement. They had to completely overhaul their customer service training, implement a transparent complaint system, and submit to quarterly FAA audits for 5 years. The federal government would be embedded in their operations, watching every move. The reign of gatekeepers like Sharon Bennett was officially over. All because of 10 minutes at Gate C-27. Nina sat in her office at NASA's Glenn Research Center, looking at a framed photo of her and her father at her doctoral graduation. The incident felt distant now, a scar rather than a wound. She was on a video call with Jonathan, who held up a thick document. The final version of Transglobal's new training manual. Approved by my office this morning. Does it have anything good? Nina asked. It's revolutionary for them, Jonathan said. Hours of mandatory implicit bias training. Role-playing scenarios based on real complaints, including a very specific one about a young black woman with a valid first-class ticket. And a new protocol, any disputed ticket requires third-party video verification. They can't make unilateral calls anymore. He smiled. Internally, employees call it the Okafor Protocol. Nina felt a lump in her throat. The Okafor Protocol. It wasn't just punishment. It was systemic change. A shield for countless others. That's really something, Dad. What Sharon and Michael failed to understand, Jonathan reflected, is that aviation is built on trust. They broke that trust. Not just with you, with the public. We just held them accountable to standards they should have been upholding all along. After they hung up, Nina looked out her office window at the research facility. The humiliation of Gate C-27 had been bitter, but the outcome was a legacy. A father's love forged into federal mandate. An act of prejudice transformed into accountability. An accord named for her family that would ripple through the industry for years, quietly making the skies fairer for everyone. And in that, she found peace that no first-class seat could ever provide. That single moment of prejudice at Gate C-27 set off a chain reaction no one could have predicted. It's a powerful reminder that the systems we live in are only as fair as the people who enforce them. And that true change often requires someone with the power and will to demand it. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reform. The Okafor Protocol became a quiet legend in the industry, a testament that accountability can have a ripple effect protecting everyone. What would you have done in Jonathan's position? Was the karma deserved? Let us know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories of justice served. Thank you for watching.